Hi, this is my full solar eclipse wolf moon video, January 10th, 2020. I don't know if anybody's going to show up or not. Usually people trickle in as I'm talking. In this video, I'm going to expose today the media and the government behind dozens of murders covered up in all media to this day. And these murders are of children, dozens of children, women, JFK and his family, Hoffa, and all the way to 9/11. 62 years of murders I'm going to expose in this video, and the people doing it. The Graham family, where I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and the Oakland County child killing started when I was kidnapped in 1957. The first kid was murdered, and then his body was dumped in a Pennsylvania field across state lines, and it's still an unsolved murder to this day by design. And L. Brooks Patterson knew that I was kidnapped, tortured, and raped, and that kid was murdered, and he covered it up for 62 years. He died hiding that truth because it's the truth eventually of Kennedy's murder, James Hoffa's murder, and 9/11, and a whole lot of other things in between. And I'm going to start this out. Hopefully they won't take this down off of YouTube, but I tried to put this up in its entirety, and this is Rush Limbaugh on what is now WJR Talk Radio in Detroit. This is Rush back in 1990s, introducing a song by the Osbourne family. And the Osbourne family is the family whose basement I was chained to a toilet and tortured and raped, and I escaped them as L. Brooks Patterson and his police force were sitting outside the house, and they laughed at me running across the street naked. I'm a little four-year-old kid, and they did absolutely nothing when those people chased me out of that house I was chained into and grabbed me and shook me and told me that if I said anything about being tortured and raped in my neighbor's basement, they would kill my family members. So I can't put the whole Rush Limbaugh show up in its entirety or the song, but I'm going to put it up in little 5-second parts as I talk about it and expose the real crime in our media and government. Now, the Graham family, in Michigan, you have Peter Graham. He owns Graham Trucking. He lives down in Florida by Trump and Mar-a-Lago nowadays, Mar-a-Lago. When I was born in 1953, Graham Trucking was the biggest trucking company in Michigan, and it was a non-union trucking company. I'm not quite sure of how many people he employed, but even to this day, it's a pretty good size trucking company, and it's non-union. Peter Graham followed me when I went back to Detroit 3 years ago to talk to L. Brooks Patterson and ask him why he's never divulged the truth of my kidnapping, torture, and the murders of children, and he wouldn't make a report again. Peter Graham followed me to Detroit to Graham's television station, WJR. I left the Oakland County Police Station and went to WJR in downtown Detroit. And the police had sent me there to talk to WJR, and they wouldn't let me in the building. But Peter Graham, the owner of the station, followed me through 3 states, caught up with me at a gas station, pulled me aside when I was getting a hamburger at a restaurant and going to a music store. And he talked to me about getting a new girlfriend and leaving the one I had. And he tried to get me to get a young girlfriend. Instead of telling my truth of the Oakland County child killings on WJR, the owner of the station followed me through 3 states, from Michigan all the way back into Indiana, pulls me over at a restaurant and tells me to get a new girlfriend And I didn't have a girlfriend. My wife had been murdered, but he didn't know that. I was living with the Ryan family, and he was all upset about that because Paul Ryan is Speaker of the House. And they've been hiding on WJR the truth of my kidnapping since I was 4 in 1957. And they beat kids to death for 25 years around me and threw the bodies on my properties. And this whole time, L. Brooks Patterson and the Hazel Park sheriff, they knew I'd been kidnapped, and they hid this, and they died. L. Brooks Patterson just died hiding this. So the Warren police and the Oakland County police I talked to, who wouldn't take reports once again from me when L. Brooks Patterson was still alive 3 years ago, they told me to go to WJR. And then the owner of WJR followed me through 3 states, and he wouldn't let me on WJR to say truth about Jimmy Hoffa or Kennedy or the Osborne family or the Wallace family or the Anderson family or any of the governor's families, Long, Wallace, Osborne, who had kidnapped and tortured me. He wouldn't let me on his TV station. He wouldn't even interview me, but he told me to get a new girlfriend. He tried to break me up with the family that gave me a place to live after they murdered my 3rd wife. My wife was dismembered, her ears were cut off. And that's the Graham family that owns WJR Detroit and News Talk Radio Detroit. And on that station to this day is Rush Limbaugh and Marie Osborne. And the very family is the Osborne family that kidnapped me when I was 4. And they've hidden these murders of children in Oakland County, Michigan for 62 years. So I can't play this because Facebook will take it off and say it, and they won't let nobody see this if I play this song in its entirety. And hopefully I'm going to play this in parts, and they won't take it off because I'm playing it in parts as a history lesson. So here's number 1, and I hope everyone can hear this. And I'm going to play this one time, and then I'll go back and play it again, and I'll explain it. But this will be Rush Limbaugh on his station, and his station, by the way, his station is WEVI, which is, EIV. Station EIV, and EIV is 4, and I was kidnapped at 4, and these people have been hiding my kidnapped and murdered children for 62 years on this very Detroit station. And this really matters because these same governors' families are the very people who framed Oswald after they murdered JFK 7 years later. And my truth of these child killings, it really, really matters. And here's Rush Limbaugh. And I'll play Rush right now.
Yeah, Eric Bazillion, 42, lives near Philadelphia. Enjoyed modest fame for his work with the Hooters, a Philadelphia band that had some hits in the mid-'80s. And it says in the story, neither the writer nor the singer is a follower of organized religion. Bazillion describes himself as quasi-Jewish, raised in Quaker schools. Nevertheless, this song is climbing the charts, and people all over America are humming it. If it's number 16 in a Hot 100, it's being played virtually everywhere. And if it's 16 with a bullet, it is being played everywhere. And it is. Some of the record executives around said, it really has nothing to do with Christmas. It's not because it's Christmas that it's doing well. It's just a good song. Here are some quotes from some teenagers that were asked about it. John Stile, he's not one of the kids, I'm sorry. Jennifer Lambert, 26, Catholic, graduate student in clinical psychology at Rutgers, says it's a cute song and it's interesting. Any song that makes people stop and think is worthwhile, yeah, it's religious, but it's more philosophical than religious. Debbie Sotsky, 17, senior at John F. Kennedy High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. My friends and I talk about it. I think it's good because it's so different. I'd like to know what it's all about. Here's the song.
And I have to cut it off there, and I hope everybody could hear that. And I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to stop it at specific parts and explain what's really going on in this video, because these are the people who kidnapped me, tortured and raped me, and they murdered kids all around me and dumped them on my properties. And then this is the WJR broadcast back in the early 90s, introducing this song from the very family that I was chained to a post in a toilet and raped by 5 men and women. And they went on to frame Oswald and probably murder Kennedy. Why would they frame Oswald in the Warren Commission report if they hadn't have killed Kennedy? And they killed Kennedy. I was kidnapped in 57, and Kennedy was killed in 63. So that's a 7-year difference. I escaped these people in that basement. They kept throwing dead kids on my family's properties, and Kennedy was murdered, and they continued to throw dead kids on my properties until Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, and the FBI detained me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder. The FBI detained me in my Oakland County, Michigan home, and I was 24 years old. My truck had been dynamited that day, and my mother was with Jimmy Hoffa at the Sly Fox the night before. And they're making movies and books, and I'm never in any of the books, not Bill O'Reilly's or Scorsese's, and they're lying to the world with movies that are false information, hiding my truth of Oakland County child murders, Jimmy Hoffa, and JFK's murder, and the premeditated murder of 4 of my wives, and the premeditated murder of Lee Harvey Oswald. And I'm going to play this clip again, and I have to turn this mic around, so I'm going to play the clip, stop it, and explain what that clip just said to me in my mind. Here goes. I'm going to start it, and I got to turn the mic away.
Yeah, Eric Bazillion, 42, lives near Philadelphia. Enjoyed modest fame for his work with the Hooters, a Philadelphia band that had some hits in the mid-'80s.
Now that's Rush Limbaugh on EIV, which is nowadays WJR. And he's still doing WJR Detroit with Osborne and Gordon Guy. And I went to Gordon School. Rush Limbaugh was a drug dealer. Rush Limbaugh was selling oxycotin, and it was mixed with heroin and cocaine and sold to the kids in my neighborhood. And he's introducing this song about a quasi-Jew, Eric, and Eric is my nephew. All right. I'm gonna turn this around and do some more, but the thing to remember is Rush Limbaugh went to jail for dealing drugs, and my brother-in-law, Mark Mothersbaugh, was murdered by drugs Rush Limbaugh sold to him around the time John Belushi was given an injection and Elvis Presley died chained to a toilet. And he's introducing this song, and the song is What If God Were One of Us by the Osborne family, the very family whose basement I was chained in, and the Osborne family tortured and raped me and beat my twin to death with Daryl Hall, and the world got Daryl Hall's TV out of Pennsylvania. And in that field where the 9/11 plane hit, that's where they dumped my murdered twin's body, and it's still an unsolved murder to this day. And the police will not take reports from me, yet the police were sitting out in front of Governor Osborne's house as they dismembered, and not as they dismembered, as they tortured and raped me. And later in my life, they cut the bone illegally out of my foot. A man called himself Dr. Stone. Cut the bone out of my feet, and he went to jail for 30 years. But they won't take any what do you call it? I put in requests, freedom of information requests about Mr. Stone, and the government denies them to me, as Stone runs Donald Trump's political campaign. The Stone family illegally cut the bone out of my foot as torture, and he wasn't a doctor, had no medical training. It was done as torture. I'm going to restart it. I'm going to start it from where I left off.
And it says in the story, neither the writer nor the singer is a follower of organized religion. Bazillion describes himself as quasi-Jewish, raised in Quaker schools.
Okay, so the guy that wrote the song, Eric, and Eric is my nephew, and they're using the name Eric and putting this song by Osborne. And this is a direct threat to me as they murder kids and throw them on my properties. And as the FBI arrests me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder, and I didn't murder Jimmy Hoffa, but I know who did. It's a threat to me right on Detroit radio, coming from Rush Limbaugh, a drug dealer, and I had stopped Robert Tosh Plumlee's gun and drug trade, which was illegal. Donald Trump's tax lawyer set me up on a farm, a 6-square-mile farm, with my 2 children. They kidnapped my children about the time this music came out at Christmas time. My daughter was 7, and I rescued her from an excavation yard. They were going to bury my daughter after raping her. She was locked in a Caterpillar earth mover. And I have the documents for that. I took those people to court. I lost the case like I always do, but during the case, they murdered Judge Hunter D. Stair at Selfridge Air National Guard, and they got away with that murder. And Sheriff Hackle did that murder in Oakland County, Macomb County, and in concert with L. Brooks Patterson in Oakland County. Selfridge Air National Guard guarded 9/11 airspace. They murdered a county judge who was in charge of my daughter and my son's case. They murdered him at Selfridge Air National Guard and gave the world a fake story on the day I rescued my daughter, locked in a Caterpillar truck. They were going to bury her after kidnapping her and raping her. On that same day, they murdered Dr. James Brandenburg down over by Timothy McVeigh's house. 5 minutes after I left his office with my daughter, who I had rescued, I got her a doctor to help her through her injuries. I met with the doctor and my daughter, and we were in his office. We left his office, and 5 minutes later, he was dead, and they covered up his murder and said he was jogging down the street and had a heart attack. At the same time, they covered up the murder of County Judge Hunter D. Stair. And this has been covered up in the media my whole life through. Since 1953, when I was born, they've been murdering kids, kidnapping kids, and then hiding it on Detroit media, owned by the Graham family. WJR is owned by the Graham family. Who's Donald Trump's best friend? Senator Graham. Osborne was governor of Michigan. These people have been hiding the truth of my life in all media for 66 years. And that's why I'm making these videos. Now I'm going to go back to Rush Limbaugh's, this first clip. I got to turn the mic.
Nevertheless, this song is climbing the charts, and people all over America are humming it. If it's number 16 in a Hot 100, it's being played virtually everywhere. And if it's 16 with a bullet, it is being played everywhere. And it is. Some of the record executives around said, it really has nothing to do with Christmas. It's not because it's Christmas that it's doing well. It's just a good song. Here are some quotes from some teenagers that were asked about it. John Stile, who is, or he's not one of the kids, I'm sorry.
Now that was a Freudian slip by Rush, and he said John Stile. In my entire life, including up to right now, I live next door to John Nichols. And the Nichols family lives next door to me right now. And it doesn't matter where I move in the country, the Nichols family moves next to me. And Nichols, he's real important. John Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma bombing. And then right after that, you had OJ. They framed OJ. And then they framed, Furman framed OJ, and I was going to Furman school. It's not coincidence in my life. This is how they hide me. Then they framed Blake for Bonnie's murder. Bonnie was my lead guitar player's sister, Bonnie. And that's why he had a Freudian slip and said John Stiles, because he was thinking of John Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, because the Oklahoma bombing had just happened, and Nichols and McVeigh lived next door to me. And McVeigh used to come and get his LSD from the illegal gun and drug trade that the people I rented houses to behind me were running. Buck and Henry, and you just saw the death of Buck Henry in the news, a Hollywood producer who gave you The Graduate. And who starred in The Graduate? Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman, where's he from? The Ukraine. He's a Ukrainian. And back then, Ukraine was part of Russia. They used a Russian actor, Ed Asner, at the Actors Guild in Hollywood, who was also from Russia. They ran Hollywood, and they marked me on the day I graduated high school. They gave you The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman. On the day they murdered Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa was murdered that year. And I was arrested for his murder the next day. I should say detained by 6 or 7 FBI agents in my driveway as my truck, the tanks were dynamited in Detroit that morning. I got another truck and got my truck loaded, did my deliveries. I drive home. I get out of my driveway in front of my kids, and 6 or 7 FBI agents surrounded me in front of my kids, and they detained me for Hoffa's murder. I'm not in any book. I'm not in any movie. I'm not mentioned in any media because Mr. Graham's WJR News and WJR Radio and Channel 4 Detroit and Channel 7, they've been hiding me for 66 years. And this is why I'm making these videos. Now, he had a Freudian slip and he said John, my next door neighbor, John Stiles. He meant he was thinking about John Nichols in the Oklahoma bombing. And I know he was. I'm going back to the clip.
Jennifer Lambert, 26, Catholic, graduate student in clinical psychology.
Okay, Jennifer Lambert. Jennifer lived in my home. When the Oklahoma bombing happened, Bobby Brooks and Marsha Blanchard and Buck and Henry were running an illegal gun and drug trade with Robert Tosh Plumley and Kiki Cameron, and Jennifer lived in my home, the little girl Jennifer. Oh, and she was Catholic, just like he says. And Lambert, oh, I'm Israel's lamb. And I know that sounds crazy, but Admiral Byrd is one of my family members, and they had murdered him on the day that I was kidnapped. In my entire life, I grew up owning BB Street in Baker College. Baker was Oswald's girlfriend. I owned that street. It's Hugh Street. I'm Hugh, and I owned that street that replaced John F. Kennedy High School with Hazel Park High School on Hugh Street. They closed John Fitzgerald High School, and they opened Hazel Park High School on Hugh Street on the day they murdered Kennedy and framed Oswald. And Baker College was built next door to the Hazel Park High School on Hugh Street, and I owned all the property at birth. Baker was Oswald's girlfriend, and this was the synchronicity of the government that killed your president and murdered all the little kids and hid my life for 66 years in Graham's media. And they're still hiding it right now. And I don't know if you could hear it on here, but I just had a police siren go by, and every time I make one of these videos, I got another dead body in the neighborhood. And I get death threats, and I carry guns 24 hours a day, and I've been poisoned twice this month. I'm going to go back to this. Lambert, BB Nat and Huey. I was raised to be a priest. I own BB Street, and BB Street is Donald Trump's wife, Be Best, on her Christmas decoration. And when she talks to kids, Be Best. That's BB Street. I own BB Street next to the General Motors Tech Center all my life in Warren, Michigan. You got Warren Report. It's because I lived in Warren, and the people that kidnapped me in Oakland County, the next county over, off of Hoover Street, murdered JFK, and they've been covering me up in Mr. Graham's media for 66 years. Dozens and dozens of murders. I have an open murder case. My wife was dismembered, raped, and murdered. I have an open murder case, and they murdered my attorney on his way to the DA's office. And people think I'm crazy. They think I'm a conspiracy theory, and I'm telling you truth. I'm going to go back to Rush Limbaugh again. And remember, Rush, he went to jail for selling drugs, and some of the drugs he sold to people, little kids in my neighbor, like Mark, my brother-in-law, they died. And he's still your truther, and he's Donald Trump's best friend with Senator Graham. Here we go.
Rutgers says it's a cute song and it's interesting. Any song that makes people stop and think is worthwhile, yeah, it's religious, but it's more philosophical than religious. Debbie Sotsky, 17, senior at John F. Kennedy High School in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Well, there's Silver Spring, Maryland, and at this time when this come out, my father recorded this for me the week before he died at Christmas time in Sterling Heights, Silver Springs. And that's not coincidence. This is how these people harass me mentally after torturing me and killing kids all around me for 66 years. I'm in so many movies like this where they mentally harass me. It's unbelievable. And now I've been harassed by every president right out of the White House after they killed Kennedy. Gerald Ford, Reagan, all of them. The Clintons. Major Tom Garrett helped murder my attorney, and he destroyed my income out of his White House office. He was Obama's White House journalist. And I say names, and I'm still here saying names, and nobody takes me to court. Ask yourself why I'm not in a courtroom being sued. And the answer is I have documents to prove everything I say, and they don't want you to know the truth of who murdered your president and who murdered the kids and who's running your media and your White House. I'm going to go back to this. I played with Golda. You had Golda Meir, premier of Israel, and I played with Jim Gold in the gallery and Jim Gold's brother, and you got Whoopi Goldberg hiding me in the Wiz. I was chained to a post in Osborne's basement, the Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch Wallace was there helping to rape me with the Wizard of Oz, Governor Osborne's family, and it's not coincidence. And then you got Sharon, as my first girlfriend in 6th grade was Sharon Collins. Look at the spelling of Sharon and Sharon Collins. And then the world got Phil Collins hiding me, and I'm a drummer too, and I was playing with Jim Gold. Then you got Sharon, and then you got BB, and I own BB Street, B Best Street. Net, I was raised to be a priest. A priest is a fisher of men. A fisherman uses a net. BB Net, and my name is Huey. That's how you pronounce his name, BB Net and Huey. After I made my first video, then he changed his name to BB Net and Yahoo. You know, I'm tired of this Israel con. They get billions of tax dollars, and I'm the little kid they used as their sacrificial lamb in 1953, right after Israel was set up. And BB Netanyahu is a crook, and anybody that follows his 3 elections knows he's supposed to go to court for payola and graft, and the payola and graft comes from WJR and the media stations in New York like Howard Stern, who are hiding my truth of your president's murder. And in the Ukraine, you're giving Ukraine $300 billion. Oh, and who's there? Trump, Pelosi, Giuliani, Biden. Oh, they're all getting millions of dollars. That's called payola. They give Russia, Ukraine, billions of dollars, and then they go back over there and they hand it back to them. And they do the same thing in China. And these are the people hiding me. And you know I'm not going to live much longer naming names and saying things like this. So you put this in your book, you write it down, and I'm telling you truth. Governors were killing little kids in Oakland County. And those same governors that kidnapped me and I escaped right in front of L. Brooks Patterson, they murdered the Kennedy family, and they premeditated the murder of Oswald. Oswald had the unfortunate life of he happened to be in the Marine Corps with Governor Osborne's family, and they used him for a sucker, and they blamed him for what they did. And on the truth of that, and they're hiding that. All 4 of my wives were murdered on the Manning Ranch, dismembered, raped, and murdered on 4 different holidays. And if somebody thinks that's a coincidence, you got to be crazy. And I have an open murder case in Tennessee about those very murders. They murdered my attorney to hide what I'm saying to you now on the Manning Ranch. And Garrett from Obama's White House office did that. Before that, it was Benghazi. That's another synchronization. I bought George a white Corvette in the Pentagon, and Prince was singing right to me. He's my cousin. He says, buy me a white Corvette. As I was publishing people like Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, Burt Reynolds, I had 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts. Bottomline, New York, I own it. You grew up with Bottomline, New York, entertainment contracts being used illegally by the WWE. And if you remember, they also stole the WWF trademark. They murdered me. I couldn't get back on my feet for a year to defend my trademark, so I never got it back. And I'm telling you, you're being conned in all media right now. Anybody that thinks that Iran just shot off 15 ballistic missiles and shot their own plane leaving Iran down, you got to be a fool. They're going to shoot their own plane leaving Iran going towards Iraq. That plane was shot down by either an American soldier or an Iraqi soldier defending their military base. It wasn't shot down by Iran. And your media is so full of lies, and they'll have photographs and satellite pictures they forge, and they'll tell you a lie in the media until you want to go to war and have a religious war with Muslims who really did not do 9/11. And I'm the truth of that. They blew up my receipts in the Twin Towers. They crashed the plane in the Pennsylvania field where they dumped my twin's body, and my wife was born, and they dismembered my wife, cut her ears off, sodomized her, and slit her throat. Halloween Day. She was born in that Pennsylvania field, and that's where my twin was thrown in 1957, beat to death by a pedo gang that runs the media in Detroit. I'm going to go back to Rush again. I was BB-Net and Huey and Sharon's and Gold in my ears. I was their new lamb. That they don't believe Jesus is the lamb. They're always looking for a new lamb. They used me as their new lamb on BB Street in historical Warren, Michigan. Here's Rush again.
Friends and I talk about it. I think it's good because it's so different. I'd like to know what it's all about. Here's the song.
And I have to cut it off there, or they won't allow you to see this video, and they might not allow me to post this video because of 2 seconds in a song, and the song is Joan Osborne and What If God Was One of Us. All right, and that's the end of that little clip, and every word I'm saying is gospel. I don't lie, and I'm dying myself. I'm almost 70. And people just poisoned me twice, and you can see the cancer on my neck. I've already had several cancer operations, and I have an infection right now talking to you. I'm not doing this because I want to make it in the music business. I've been a music publisher all my life, and I took music all the way through college. I played drums, guitar, violin, and piano. I don't need to make it anywhere. I made it to the top a long time before most of you were born. And I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm trying to tell you the truth of your country. You have Markle. I'm the line. Johnny Cash walked me. I'm the line. Mark L. Why did Prince Henry marry Mark L? I'll tell you. Prince Harry is marked by Clint Eastwood the same as I am, and his mother Diana is my cousin. He's saying him and Markle are leaving the royal family and coming to live in America. And I'll tell you right now, the reason why is because you have a Knight of the Queen, Bloomberg, running to be your president. Now imagine this. You fought King George and you freed yourself from the throne. And now she's got a knight of her throne running to be your president named Bloomberg. Oh, and this is all a con about Prince Charles and Meghan Markle coming back here to live on the West Coast in my state right by me. This is a con, so they can help Bloomberg be your president. Don't fall for the con. And don't fall for the Graham and Donald Trump con again. And I don't see anybody in that Democrat Party worth voting for. But we got a major problem in this country. Your media is nothing but lies, and they're hiding them. The very people who murdered your president, you keep electing them in your Senate, House, and White House. You're hiring. Obama was groomed by the Queen. Now she's got Charles and Markle, who marks me. And there's no lie in that. Elton John, her mother hung around Elton John. Oh, the pedo gang that kidnapped me with Osborne and Wallace and Long. Eastwood, Sandra Locke was my girlfriend after Sharon Premier and Sharon Collins, and you got Phil Collins. Elton John ran around with my cousin Princess Diana. Oh, he's gay. Oh, and they're all Catholics. Oh, King James Version of the Bible. They're all Catholics, and they're using that to control you. Even this song is written and sung by Catholics. And Rush Limbaugh, who murdered little kids with his oxycotin and heroin in Detroit and other states, went to jail, and then he come out, and Graham put him right back on the radio station, and he's your truth, just like Julian Assange, the child rapist, was. You know, you are being conned. And Julian Assange, his whole career, 50 years at WikiLeaks, is all about hiding my truth, just like Graham at WJR is, and Osborne singing you the song. And I know it's a nice song, and it sounds good, and a lot of people love it, and you probably grew up singing the song. But the people behind the song are scum, and they've killed little kids, and they've been hiding the truth of who murdered your president for 60 years. 60 years they've been hiding the truth. Now, that's the end of clip 1, and I'm going to go to clip 2 if I can find it, and I'm going to play it through, and then I'm going to go back and talk about it. So here's the whole clip in its entirety, clip 2, and I got to cut it up like this or they won't allow me to put it on. And I'm doing this for a historical document. I'm not taking anybody's trademark. This is Eric's and EIV Detroit and Rush Limbaugh and Joan Osborne, and I'm not playing the song in its entirety, you know, so don't delete my video. It's for a historical document, and I'm a publisher. I own Bottomline Publishing. I got a federal publishing license from Foley Federal Court, New York, and I'm the publisher. I have a right to publish this song, so don't delete my video. And here's the second clip. Okay, that's the end of Joan Osborne's song. What if God were one of us on the bus and he went back to heaven and he's all alone? Nobody calling on the phone. Okay? Oh, nice religious song from a quasi-Jew. Gee, Q comes to mind, and I'm the real Q because Harv Bennett, that wrote the Star Trek movies, he used me as Q in the Star Trek movies, and he came to dinner at my house every weekend with Renee Bennett, and they murdered. Renee Bennett was part of John Benet Ramsey's murder. And that's not a pipe dream. It's not a theory. I lived it. I was in New York when they murdered her, and Howard Stern was just getting his job, giving you Huey Lewis and Billy Squier. Huey Lewis came from France, and his real name is Billy, not Huey. And his last name isn't Lewis. Billy Squier came from Germany, and his name isn't Billy Squier. His last name is Craig. Oh, and I just happened to go to school with Craig Towers, and his father was my music teacher, Mr. Towers. Del Towers, and that figures into a whole lot of media con jobs there. I'm not going into that today. But here, I'll play it one more time. So nobody calls God. Nobody cares about God. Oh, gee, isn't that true? It's coming out of the mouth of the kid of the family that killed little kids and tortured and dismembered me. That was number 2 clip. Here's number 3 clip, and I'm going to just turn this mic around and play it, and then I'll go back and play it and explain it to you. And I'm going to play that again and listen well. Oh, except for the only person calling God is except for maybe the Pope in Rome. That's the last line in the song. Now, how many little kids has the Pope killed, raped? Just in Philadelphia, there's 1,000 kids they raped. And you understand? You understand this pedophile family that killed little kids in Oakland County is singing to you about the Pope in Rome. It's the last line in the song, and it's handed to you by a drug dealer who murdered my brother-in-law years after I was kidnapped by the Osborne family. Oh, except for the Pope maybe in Rome is calling God. Oh, gee, that's great coming from a family of pedophiles. And then who's the Pope? He's king of the pedophiles. And if anybody out there doesn't know that, I can't help you. He's got thousands of priests just in America. If you go worldwide, he's got 40,000 priests in jail for raping little kids. They're pedophiles. And you fund their church. And then the pedophiles that were killing kids in Oakland County are running WJR and the media all over this country, and they're giving you songs like this. Nobody's talking to God except maybe the Pope in Rome. Oh, and what's the Pope doing? Oh, he's king of a pedophile cabal. And if you can't put this together, I can't help you. These same people, including the Pope, killed President JFK. And why hasn't nobody taken me to court? Jesse Ventura, you're a liar. You don't want the truth of JFK. You don't want the truth of Jimmy Hoffa. Neither do you, Hulk Hogan. You're liars. Alex Jones, you're a liar. Ted Nugent, you're a liar. Osborne, you're a liar. Wallace, you're a liar. Senator Graham, you're a liar. Donald Trump, you're a liar. And I've been doing this in videos. I'm not in jail. All they do is keep killing people around me, poisoning me. Oh, they want to shut me up, and I'm not going to shut up. Jackson on your 20 is my ancestor. So is Lincoln. Nichols is the Nickel, the Indian family. I live with a Lakota Indian right now. That's the Ryan family. Speaker of the House Ryan is Lakota Indian. Oh, they forgot to tell you that part? Oh, and it's the Simpson family too. Trump was on the Simpsons. Not once, twice. Trump was on them. Ivanka Trump was on them. Ivanka's going to run for president after Donald. That's my left and my right bower. If I play euchre, and my friend David Kerr, he runs the tank plant. And that's my grandfather's, his homestead. The Abrams tank plant is my family's homestead in Centerline, Michigan. On each side of Centerline, Michigan is Warren, Michigan. And on one side is the tech center. And I own the house there on Marion Street. I bought it for Miller. And they tell you Miller murdered Hoffa in a house I bought for Miller. Oh, gee. And Miller worked for me and wasn't anywhere around Hoffa on the day he died. Neither was Tony Tocco. Tony Tocco worked for me at the Carousel. Jack Ruby owned the Carousel. Jack Ruby, who shot Oswald, owned the Carousel, and I rented the factory next door to the Carousel from Jack Ruby. Tony Tocco and Miller worked for me. Anybody thinks I'm a conspiracy theory, you're nuts. I've lived these things, and I can prove every word I'm saying. Oh, one more time. Except for the Pope maybe in Rome, the pedophile king. Anybody wants to doubt what I'm saying, there's the pedophile king from the pedophiles that chained me to a post and murdered kids next to me and dumped their bodies in a Pennsylvania field at Daryl Hall's house. And you all watch Daryl Hall's TV, who gave you the Eagles and the Tom Petty, Alabama. Anybody want to make it rock? They either went to the Bottomline in New York, which was my stolen trademark, or they went to Daryl's TV in Pennsylvania, and they became a rock star. I sobered I sobered Joe Walsh up at St. Anne's in the basement. I was a sponsor. I was the sponsor to Charlie Sheen, and he come out and told you it's a great big cabal, AA, and it is. He was right. He was telling you the truth. They murdered Charlie as Charlie Sheen came into AA. M. Jagger, you know Mick Jagger. He was running Caldwell Banks. Well, the guy I was working with, Charlie Caldwell, was murdered as I started being Joe Walsh's sponsor with Glenn Beck. I was the sponsor. Oh, I was the sponsor because I never drank. I was put in AA because somebody put tranquilizers in my food, and then I drove down the street and fell asleep driving a semi, and I had to go to AA for a year. I never drank. I wasn't drunk when the police threw me in a jail cell. They didn't have a breath test back then. I was in Jimmy Hoffa's union, and the last thing I would do is drink while driving a semi down a city street. I never did that, not once. And then I became sponsors to Dr. O'Brien, Kathy O'Brien's father. Dr. O'Brien grew up next door to me with Roseanne Barr. And Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien have hidden my truth. And you think little girls are being raped? No, they were raping little boys. They cut the bone out of the middle of my foot as torture. They made me get on my knees. You got 4 dead in Ohio from Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Young is Neil Young. Oh, I just love my torture. I got Neil Diamond, Neil Young, and all those songs, and I'm their publishers. All those songs marked me, and I don't care who thinks I'm crazy. I'm not. I had 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts. I'm all the presidents on your money, Hamilton, Grant, Chase, Morgan. These are all families in my family, cousins. I grew up with them, and everybody in this country gets their food stamps from Chase Morgan Banks. It's my family. I grew up with them. I'm not a theory. And I'm not screaming at the people listening to this. I'm screaming at the people that come along and put on my below this video, I'm crazy, or put another murder below it, or threaten me, or tell me I'm a theory. I'm not a theory. I got 4 dismembered, raped, murdered wives on the Manning Ranch. Tell me that's a theory. I'll punch you in the mouth. Now here's the next one. Rush Limbaugh, the drug dealer, Trump's best friend. Him and Sean Hannity. You go to Ohio where Neil Young gave you 4 dead in Ohio. Oh, I'm dead in Ohio at Turner Broadcasting, and at Sean's back door, the biggest gay bar in Ohio, is Sean's back door. That's where you get Sean Hannity from. Hear that, Sean? Ike Turner, who owns Turner Broadcast, he was changing the tires on my semis when Rush was telling you, oh, Osborne, the quasi-Jew that raped Hugh and murdered kids, have a beautiful song, and only the Pope calls God from Rome. Here, this is the 4th clip from Rush Limbaugh, the drug dealer.
John Osborne and One of Us, and if you just tuned in, this song is rocketing up the pop charts, and people are amazed that this has happened because it's a song of obviously questioning in a good sense, and openness in a good sense. And I tell you, it is as a former DJ for 12 years. Now, admittedly, this is going back to the late '60s and through the entire '70s.
Oh, the 70s when he murdered little kids on the streets with his drugs. And now he comes out of prison and he's Trump's best friend. And he's given you the very pedophile gang on Graham's TV station that killed the little kids in 1957. From 1957 to 1977, 20 years, they murdered little kids and they threw them on my properties. Timmy King was the last one. They threw him on Gardner Street. And that's my Aunt Gardner Street. Gardner Isabella, the museum. And about that same time, they told you the Isabella museum was stolen, artwork was stolen. Well, at the same time, they got a $25 million reward out for the Isabella Gardner Museum. Well, I'm the Gardner family, and we gave you Make Room for Daddy. It was the first TV series on Earth. And Mr. Garden spent his life in Marquette State Prison. And Anderson, who was raping me, torturing me in Osborne's basement, they made L. Brooks Patterson and his friends made Anderson the warden at Marquette State Prison, where they put Mr. Gardner in when Fagan was sitting in New York, telling you that Thomas Jefferson's family were communists. And then you got Ed Asner running the media, hiding me in the truth of who murdered your president, JFK. And the Catholic priest in Michigan, St. Mary Magdalene's, they had to pay out $1 billion to the very pedo gang that was torturing me. And I gave my first confession to Father O'Donnell, and gee, Mr. O'Donnell helped frame Oswald. In the Warren Report. Anybody can go read the Warren Report. There's the Catholic family O'Donnell. Oh, and O'Donnell, gee, he runs, he's a journalist. Which station is it? MSNBC? Oh, top journalist. Mr. O'Donnell. Same family that framed Oswald. On CNN, my wife was Nancy. They doubled her, excommunicated her from the Catholic Church. They wouldn't let us be married in. Excommunicated her. You got CNN, Anderson Cooper, 360. Anderson raped me. Cooper kidnapped my daughter, and I rescued her out of Dan's excavating company in Utica, Michigan, at the 6 square mile farm next to Lionel Trains. And there's Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, and Nash, who were my neighbors all my life. And I'm dead in Ohio. Turner Broadcasting ain't going to give you my story. Graham ain't going to give you my story. Trump ain't going to give you my story. They've been hiding the murders of children, the murders of your president, and 4 of his brothers, 3 of his brothers, their nephew, John, and now Sharice Kennedy. Oh, gee, somebody raped her too. Oh gosh, I wonder who. You know, I'm not a pipe dream. I'm related to these people. I grew up with Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke. I mean, look it up. My Mother the Car. My lead player was Kit. You got Kit the talking car. I'm Baby Huey. I was born in 53. Baby Huey's got a 53 with a circle on it, and gee, he talks to you. My mother was My Mother the Car for Dick Van Dyke, and my mother really knew him. And I grew up with Mary Tyler Moore's family. I'm not a theory. So come on, take me to court. Jesse Ventura, you're a liar. Take me to court. Take me to court. You earned all your money at Bottomline events while Marines and governors stuck their penises in my body at the age of 4 and murdered children. And you tell me you want the truth as you earned all your money at my stolen trademark Bottomline. You want the truth of Kennedy? Well, come on, it's right here. You want the truth of Hoffa? Well, I was arrested. Oh, and you were on Slurpee cups at 7-Eleven the whole time I was growing up, selling Preparation H and Hoover vacuums with Stanley steamers. Come on, Jesse, sue me. Let's go to court. Come on, Hulk, sue me. You were my bouncer with your brother Mike at Covey's, and then the world got Cavuto on Fox. And I owned all the entertainments at Fox Entertainment through Tommy Valendo in New York before cable TV existed. 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts. You stole them from me, and you're still hiding my truth of Kennedy, Oklahoma bombing, Jimmy Hoffa, the Duncan family, 5 kids. You murdered them all in one night. On the same night, you murdered the Kennedy family. JFK, you murdered JFK, and you murdered the Duncan kids next door to me on the same day. And then you gave the world there can be only one. I'm still here. Mick is my brother. Mick Cloud. Oh, Benji Hazy. Oh, it's really hazy, Clinton. Come on, take me to court, one of you sons of bitches. You're all afraid to because I got documents to prove it, and it'll put the entire fucking country in jail, and you know it. That's the end of my video, and I hope everybody had fun. And I'm telling you the truth. I'm not a theory. I lived this. And if I didn't live it, then why aren't they taking me to court? All they do is kill people and poison me. And they poisoned me and shot me and stuck knives in my back my entire life. My entire life. I've been DOA 3 times. I don't know how many times I've had a gun put to the back of my head and the trigger pulled. I'm tired of this. Come on, sue me. Come on, Jesse, take me to court. Let's show the documents in court. Let's show who really owns Bottomline. And then that wasn't enough. You murder my wife, and then you go to Minnesota and you become governor, and then you run off to Mexico and you open up a TV station and you want the truth of Kennedy after you put me on Slurpee cups and you're sticking your things in my mouth. Oh, gee, nice guy, Jesse. You're my hero. Hulk, you're my hero. Austin, you're my hero. Oh, gosh, you guys are my heroes. You stole my trademark. You stole $2 trillion from me. $2 trillion. You couldn't even pay me back the interest on what you owe me. There's not enough money just to pay back the interest you owe me if I sue you. Come on, take me to court. Any one of you, take me to court. I'm the truth. I'm not a theory. Good night, everybody. I'm ending this.